gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the JWJ podcast. I'm Shane Thomas, joined by my precious shooter on the wing, my main man, Mr. James Washington.
I'm precious. What's going on, bro?
Chilling, man. We're recording this pod at 2:13 Tuesday morning. This is after Game 5, where Golden State held on for a 104-94 win over the Boston Celtics. Golden State takes a 3-2 lead in the 2022 NBA Finals. Andrew Wiggins with 26 points, 10 in the fourth quarter, along with 13 rebounds, 5 of those in the fourth quarter, as Maple Jordan continues his tear in the NBA Finals. So, James, what are your thoughts about, what we already predicted that Golden State would pull out Game 5 here?
Hold on, me. Oh, Canada, Wiggins is a bad man. I tried to tell him, Shane, look, this dude has been unbelievable. I mean, it's such a reviving moment for his career, and it's awesome to see. He like I was talking about on the on the last recap. I feel like a lot of people wanted to write Wiggins off because of nothing more than draft position, and it was such an unfair look for him. And I think going to Golden State is probably going to go down when he retires as the defining move of his career. This has been tremendous for him, and it's all coming to fruition now. I mean, his team sees it. The coaching staff sees it. He's just been outstanding for Golden State, especially in this postseason run.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And his kind of emergence has changed everything for that team. I mean, without him, you have to think about like who's going to be that guy on the wing for them. That trade, or his ability, his going there really like kind of rejuvenated. They needed to get younger. They needed another kind of rangy wing defender as they got older. Remember, that used to be Harrison Barnes. Then it became Kevin Durant. Then it became Andrew Wiggins.
So, quite the upgrade to,
Yeah, we won't mention the fact that last year it was like Eric Pascal and Damian Lee and a variety of 2K players. And
to all of our listeners out there that take the time to also listen to the NBA either on the radio or in any other forms of media, we're going to do you guys a favor. And even though Golden State is one game away from a ring, we are going to try our hardest to not make this podcast about Kevin Durant, because somehow the people that get paid to do this, they can't seem to get that out of the way. So, I mean, they still act like Kevin Durant was a Warrior like 2 weeks ago. So we're going to try our best to leave his name out of this. I'm not going to mention Kevin Durant anymore. I promise I'm not going to talk about Kevin Durant. Will I get paid if I keep mentioning him? You think maybe they'll pay me? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll get any like residuals from that, but but anyway, Game 5, like we said, Golden State wins it by 10. But it didn't seem like it seemed like Boston had a chance. Let's talk about that third quarter. They come out and it's what 51-39 at the half. And Boston looked like, okay, it's getting away from them early. And then we get into the third quarter and they just come out on fire. They go 11 of 19 from the floor, 6 of 9 from 3. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart combined for 18 points in the frame. On the other side, Golden State struggles shooting the ball. I think they go 9 for 21 from the floor, 4 of 13 in that third quarter. But Golden State kind of got the last laugh there because Jordan Poole hits about a 30-footer to beat the buzzer to end the third. I think that was a very big shot considering Boston would have gone into the fourth with the lead, which I think they would have had, a lot of confidence there, given how well they were shooting, especially how poorly they started. So that third quarter was pivotal for Boston. They outscored Golden State 35-24 in that period. And then, then we get to the fourth quarter. And James, you could talk about, what happened there, because I mean, it seemed like it was kind of it was Jekyll and Hyde really there from the third to the fourth for Boston.
No, listen, I have to, even before I get to the fourth quarter, I kind of got to piggyback off of what you started with. Yeah, Boston's third quarter was outstanding. But it even kind of went back to, in the second quarter as well. Boston started the game 0 for 12 from long, 0 for 12. And right after that, they decide, we're going to turn up the juice a little bit. And they hit 8 threes in a row. So, you already touched on the shooting percentages and everything. Boston, from the tail end of that first half into, the third quarter, Boston was on fire. And I think that was huge. Another thing, and we kind of talked about this a minute ago. Another thing that I think was big for Boston was they tried their hardest in that third quarter to just take advantage of Steph Curry. And I know we're going to touch on Steph in a little bit, but that's mainly the offensive end that we'll talk about. But even on the defensive end, there were a few significant plays in that in the third quarter where you saw Jaylen Brown. He got matched up on Steph and he just went out of his way to body him. And I'm surprised we haven't been seeing much of that because, I'm not going to say that Steph is a pushover on defense, but we're also not going to say that he's otherworldly either. And to top it off, I mean, Jaylen Brown has the size, he has the strength, and he should have been doing this a long time ago. But it was interesting to see, and I'm surprised that going through the rest of the second half, Boston didn't try to take advantage of that a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they were kind of going at Steph, because you remember last game, Jaylen was going at Draymond Green. He was big game hunting. And then, he goes for Steph. And I think that was part of the game plan. I mean, if you think about how the game started, they were denying Steph. They were getting up in his airspace and making it tough. They were kind of really stifling that little quick, little pitch dribble handoff action. And I think that was key to, Steph start, shooting the ball so poorly this game. We'll get to that in a second. But I think between their defensive game plan on him and then their offensive game plan to kind of get switches there and go at him, I think that was very important for eventually them getting back into the game while Golden State was struggling.
Yeah, and even moving on, if we look, like I said, we kind of look at that Boston. Is it fair? Yes. I mean, I'll call it a Boston collapse. I don't care. Looking at the fourth quarter and just seeing how things just, to be as euphemistic as possible, how things just suddenly did not work out. That sounds nice enough. Just to see what happens to Boston in the fourth quarter, I have to point out, and yes, I'm going to make a joke because it's Boston, and we'll go into more detail, but everybody knows, and now you listeners out there know, I'm a Laker fan, have been for about a quarter century now. It's very long-standing fandom over here, but there's been this huge connection, with Jason Tatum and his relationship with, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace to my GOAT, but that's not here nor there. This long-standing relationship. The one thing that I noticed tonight is it's a shame that Jason Tatum was born in 1998, because if he really wanted to channel Kobe in this postseason, somebody should have told him to make sure that it was a Kobe that he had actually seen live, because he made the strangest decision to channel Kobe from the 97 conference finals against Utah. The turnaround looked beautiful. The three was, in line, but if he had been any closer to Douglasville, Georgia, he might have blown my house down with these air balls. I was just like, what's really going on, man? it just seemed like Boston was just so out of their element in the fourth quarter. Like I said, you look at Tatum, and Tatum the shots he was getting, they were good looks. They were good looks. These
Absolutely.
turnarounds, these turnarounds he's getting, they're 12, 15 feet. I mean, and that's usually a field day for him. He airballed two of them. Then he had a three from the top of the key. I think it was like slightly to the left. Airballs that too. And it just seemed like in the fourth quarter, Boston was just deflated. It just seemed like everybody was just out of place. It was honestly, it was kind of inexplicable.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that fourth quarter. I mean, they shot 4 of 15 from the floor. Tatum had 5 points on 5 shots. He was 1 of 5, which is a shame because he played pretty well. I mean, this was one of his best games in this series, arguably the best. He had 27 points, hit 5 of 9 from three, had 10 rebounds. He had 4 assists and he had 4 turnovers. And that leads me to my next point of it is the NBA Finals. It is game 5. And Boston's inexperience showed here. Because if you look at the turnover differential, they had 18 turnovers to Golden State 6. Like when you come out and you shoot the ball as bad as Boston shot it. I mean, they shot 40, a little over 41% from the floor, but they shot 11 of 32 from three. Had a bad start, but me and James were talking about this before we came on air. Golden State went 9 of 40 from three, and Steph Curry went 0 for 9 from three, one of his worst performances of his career.
And easily Golden State's worst shooting performance of the finals so far.
Absolutely. And we were just talking about this. They go 9 of 40 from three, and they still shot just under 47% from the floor. That's impressive. And you know how you win by 10 and you go 9 of 40 from three and you still win? You only turn the ball over 6 times. They had 23 assists tonight. And even though Steph didn't play well, he got a lot of help picking him up. We mentioned Wiggins already. And it looks like both of us are clairvoyant because we both said that Klay Thompson would be the X factor. And he was. He came out, he had 21 points, he hit 5 threes. It was a Klay game, but we also got, we talked about this, I think in the last recap pod as well, that they have a bunch of guys that can go off any given night. And tonight, it was Klay, it was Wiggins, but it was Gary Payton and Jordan Poole. Both of those guys, they combined for 29 points off the bench and 10 of 16 shooting.
That was huge.
And we also mentioned that, we kind of got on Draymond a little bit, at the end of game 4, but he scored 8 points. And, for him, I mean, that's better than he's been doing lately. But he got all of those in the first half. He had 8 rebounds, 6 assists. His ability to set the tone for them defensively and make sure that the table is set offensively. Those 8 rebounds, those 6 assists are huge. They went up by 16 early and looked like they were going to run away with this thing before Boston, found their traction in the third. So, James, just talk about, the impact that Peyton and Poole had, especially, when the game kind of, looked like it was about to get out of hand there.
Well, yeah, the bench was going to be huge in this game. I know we've talked about both sides of the ball. We've talked about Golden State and Boston and how it's really going to come down to the supporting cast. We know the stars are going to do what they do. The inexperience is starting to show with Tatum and Brown, and that's not even a knock on them. I mean, like I said in the game 4 recap, they'll be back. These are 2 very talented individuals. They're going to be back on this platform, but they're just going up against a team. And, we mentioned it before. They're going up against a team that's been doing this for a decade. So experience does make a difference. But another big thing that honestly had me worried a little early on, and I mean, Golden State was quick to kind of calm me down, a very understated potential problem from the first half and really the first quarter. Kevon Looney picked up 3 fouls in 3 minutes. So
Huge point.
Once that happened, I was immediately worried. I was like, Golden State might have a problem, because once if you let guys like Robert Williams get going, I mean, without Kevon Looney in the middle, and from what we had been seeing with Draymond in the past, and well, in the last 4 games, you think about this. Draymond fouled out tonight rather. That was the 3rd time in 5 games. So if you break down Golden State's interior, you might have a chance. I mean, of course, they're going to rely on the 3 pretty heavily, but you attack that basket, you keep getting a lot of these guys in foul trouble, and that's a huge chance for you.
Absolutely. I mean, it was really weird to see Andre Iguodala in the game so early. I mean, he had barely played at all. I think they said he had played
14 minutes.
14 minutes
yeah.
in the finals, and suddenly he's getting first quarter burn. Like,
yeah.
Looney, that was a huge bullet that Golden State dodged, being able to navigate around that foul trouble and still be able to build the lead they did and not completely crumble.
And another big thing about it too is also kudos to Steve Kerr. Kevon Looney gets in this foul trouble, and you're sitting here watching, and they're like, oh, Looney picks up his 3rd foul, yada yada yada. 2-3 minutes later, you look over and you see that Steve Kerr has still chosen to keep him in the game a little longer. So, like I say, kudos to Steve Kerr as well. He knows his players. He knows what they can do. He knows what they will and won't do. And he made what I think was a wise decision. He still let Kevon Looney get a little bit of that burn. And we clearly see that at the end of the day, it worked out well for them. Andre Iguodala, like I said, I'm looking, I just happened to be in the kitchen while the game was going. And I heard them say, Iguodala's checking in, this, that, whatever. First thing I thought was, how much of the game did I miss? Have I not been paying attention? So I look over and I see it's like 2 minutes, maybe 32 seconds left in the first quarter. I was like, what in the world is going on here? I was like, the Twilight Zone edition of the NBA Finals. I was like, somebody explain this.
Yeah, and I mean, it was bizarre to see that kind of stuff going on, man. It was bizarre, but like I said, I mean, they navigated it, and Golden State wins this game, and the trend continues. We pointed this out after game 4. The team that owns the paint, wins the paint point battle, has won every single game in this series. Golden State wins the paint battle 50-36. They had 22 points off Boston's 18 turnovers. And you touched on it a minute ago, is the bench. Golden State had 2 guys combined for 29. Boston had 10 bench points, and a lot of those came in garbage time. I mean, you had a 3 from Luke Cornett, you had a 3 from Aaron Nesmith, and there was another guy that hit a 3 or something off the bench. And then Derek White scores 1 point?
Bro, Derek White had 1 point off the bench, and that was because he couldn't even hit both of his free throws. So he splits his free throws in the first half. Boston's bench accounted for 1 point in the first half. Any of our listeners out there, do us a favor. If you can go find a game in NBA Finals history where a team only comes up with 1 bench point in the first half and ends up winning that game, please let us know. We can be emailed at the jwjpodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Instagram or Twitter at the JWJ Podcast. Yes, I'm plugging. Love you guys. But that's a recipe for disaster. It's not going to work. And we've been saying this since the finals started. If you cannot utilize your bench and make effective use of them, you're drowning.
Absolutely. And we talked about this before we went on air. Like, this offseason, I don't know what Boston's cap situation looks like. They have to find a way to reconfigure and retool that bench. Like, guys that earlier in the season had Ime Udoka's trust. I mean, you look at a guy like Peyton Pritchard. He can't play in the series. I mean, it's a shame because I like Peyton. He's scrappy. He comes out there and he competes. But I mean, a lot of their flaws are kind of getting exposed. I mean, Marcus Smart is basically your point guard. And everybody knows he's kind of a like he's a serviceable lead guard. But if he's the point guard on your team, I think you can do better there. And I think they need more punch off the bench. I like Peyton Pritchard as a guy that can knock down shots, but he's a little bit small, and I think that's one reason he's not playing in this series like he should. Grant Williams is basically your sixth man. No knock on him, but I mean, he kind of just broke out. You know what I mean? Like he's not a trusted veteran hand that's going to come off the bench and light it up. Like they would if they had a Jamal Crawford type, or they had a guy that could kind of run the show and go off for points off the bench, they could definitely use that. They need another shooter. They could use either that on the wing or in the backcourt, and if they can, upgrading the point guard position would be big for them. But going back to the game, I mean, you miss 10 free throws and you commit 18 turnovers. There's not many games at any level where you can do that and still win. And that's just, that it sucks because they had such a good third quarter and looked like they were going to be able to steal that game. But the turnovers, the missed free throws, that's their own undoing. And now, we're looking at Golden State here going up 3-2, going up to Boston for game 6. And now you wonder, if you're Boston, like, do we have it in us to extend this series and get it to 7, or is this the end of the road? Like that's simply where we're at right now with Boston.
Cue the boys to men. Now, so going back to the retooling, I 100% agree with you. Like, as a matter of fact, earlier, I feel like it's worth mentioning. We were, when we first got off the phone right after the game, we just started, throwing opinions around about what happened and everything. And I won't even lie. You mentioned Nick Stauskas. Bro, I forgot he was on the team. I forgot he was there, because we see him that often, or that rarely, I should say. I forgot he was there. So
we forgot about Sauce Castillo.
Exactly. Everybody act like they forgot about Nick. Like I was like, I forgot he was there. But another thing that bothers me is, I understand, coaches have their rotations, they have their preferences, this, that, or whatever. I have an issue with you going out of your way to bring back Daniel Tice and not play him. That blows my mind, because you had him there once already and he was a valuable part of your roster. And to bring him back in now with, Robert Williams has been solid, but let's be real, since he's come back from injury as well, there's been questionable moments for him too. And you're still leaving, like tonight, Tice was a DNP, didn't even see the floor, didn't even take off his jacket. I just feel like at this point, you've got to be willing to try things out. Especially there's not really going to be a right or a wrong here, I believe, when your back's against the wall like this. I mean, you're a rookie coach. You're dealing with a roster full of guys that have never been here before, and you're playing against a coach and players to where this is almost practice for them. They're used to this. So the worst thing you can do right now as a coach, in my opinion, is go out there with one idea in mind and not change anything. Give Tice a little bit of run. Worst case, what happens? You lose. I mean, what does that change? what does that change? So you've got to be willing to, and I know it's easier said than done. I mean, I'm not an NBA head coach. I don't know what goes on in those locker rooms and on those drawing boards, but just from a fan standpoint, I feel like if you're going to bring somebody back like Daniel Tice that has shown his worth to you in the past, give him a chance to show it again.
Like, just looking at this, man, it's, you look at who played and who didn't. I mean, let's see who all got minutes for Boston here. So we got Grant Williams played 16 minutes. Derek White played 21 minutes. Peyton Pritchard played 4 minutes and 41 seconds. After that, you have Juwan Morgan, Sam Hauser, Nick Stauskas, Luke Cornett, Aaron Nesmith. All those guys got minutes. Malik Fitz and Daniel Tice both got DNPs. Now, of that group that played the top half of those minutes, Derek White, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard's been your backup point guard all year, and it's evident that he can't play in this series, I guess, because he played 4 minutes, 41 seconds and had no impact. They ran an out of bounds play for him to possibly get a three in the corner. He steps on the sideline.
Bro, we're in the NBA finals looking at an NBA 2K roster. Like,
yeah, and when your bench is 2K guys, I'm like, who is Juwan Morgan?
Exactly.
Who is Malik Fitz? Who is, I mean, we know about Aaron Nesmith, but who is Sam Hauser?
Yeah.
They played Luke Cornett. They'd have been better off with Jim Cornette out there, given the help that they've given them off the bench. I mean, he played a minute and 19 seconds.
Yeah, it's just mind blowing to me. It's like when you go and play 2K and you're playing like My Career or something, and you have like, you have all these stars in the first 5-6 spots, and then the last 8 positions on the roster are somehow all filled by a guy named John Williams. It's like, what is really
all the dudes with the headbands and the arm sleeves, and they all look the same, and they wear 95, 96, 97.
Right, they're all bald.
Yeah, and they're all bald. So like, who's to say those dudes weren't us? Who's to say we couldn't help the Celtics right now? I mean, I'm good for about 5 minutes.
That's it. I got it. Look, and push come to shove, every coach can appreciate that guy because we're all good for 6 fouls.
Absolutely. And I mean, just going off what you said earlier about, making a change, putting, using Daniel Tice a little bit more. I sit here and I'm looking, I'm like, I'm sorry.
No, I said, or at all. No, you.
Yeah. And see, it's a lot of guys that you haven't even heard of. And I mean, the bench is already thin. They got three guys we know of. So an 8-man rotation, and then a bunch of guys that are at the end of the bench. Tice could definitely be number 9 there. Because I mean, looking toward the end of the bench, Nick Stauskas is a guy that, having him as a shooter is nice. The only problem is he's one of those guys, he's a great shooter that can't shoot. I think for his career, he probably shoots under 40 from the field. And I mean, most of his shots are threes.
Right.
Everybody knows he was a sniper coming out of Michigan so many times ago, but I mean, he's there. I don't know if you want to go with him just because he's been away from the NBA for a while, and he hasn't shown that he can necessarily contribute on a team that's like winning. So, I mean, it's tough to see Nick in that position. I think he could help them if maybe he was a little more seasoned and maybe they gave him more chances. But, he's mostly relegated to mop-up minutes. Luke Cornett, he's not going to play a ton. I mean, he's a guy that can knock down threes like he did tonight. He hit a 3. 7-1 guy that can block a shot and hit a 3. I don't think suddenly you're going to plug him in either. I think they've kind of painted themselves into a corner with the rotation to where you don't have a lot of guys that are proven contributors. And then you also have, some guys like Peyton Pritchard, it's his second year. Like you look at Grant Williams, he just broke out. Derek White is a guy who's been a pleasant surprise, but, you still he had 1 point tonight, and he was a guy that had been a spark. So, at the end of the day, they got to retool that bench in the offseason somehow, or make a move up top to, kind of add more pieces to that puzzle, because you can see the potential of their team. They just don't have any depth at all. And the margin for error is razor thin. I mean, tonight, Jaylen Brown, he had been playing really well. He had 18 points, but he shot 5 of 18 tonight, 0 for 5 from 3. But he had 5 turnovers. So Tatum and Brown combined for 9 of the 18 turnovers. Like it's been kind of one guy's hot, one guy's not thing. And this is the first game that Tatum really like showed up. You know, he didn't have a good fourth quarter, but he had 27 points and led the way like we expected him to. And Jaylen Brown finally had his dud. So yeah.
And going off of that as well, in the I don't want to call it backhanded, but I kind of want to shout out Al Horford. Unfortunately, it's not for all the right reasons. This was possibly one of the most efficient games that Al Horford played in the series so far. He shot 50% from the floor. Granted, it was only 3 of 6, but I mean, he shot 50% from the floor, only attempted 3 long balls, hit 2 of them, 50% from the line. He finishes with 9 and 9, and this is probably one of the most complete games that we've seen him play since game 1. That just goes back to the reasoning right there. You have to be willing to go deeper into your bench. I understand that these might be guys that, you know, you might want to call no names or this or that or whatever, but you take a chance. Again, that's what it falls back to on me. Take a chance. I'm like, if this is what you're gonna get from Al Horford in 33 minutes, you can stand to give somebody like Daniel Tice 5. Like, he literally never got off the bench. And I don't see that working for Boston at all. But for what it's worth, I will say, you know, I love when, you know, predictions ring true. And we've both been saying it all along. If Boston is going to hang their championship hopes up on like a guy like Al Horford, bringing them another game 1 performance, they better go ahead and start planning for training camp.
Yeah, and it's a shame. I love Al, man. I mean, he's always been awesome, but I mean, this is just one of those deals. I mean, sometimes it's just the opportunities are there. I mean, he hasn't. I think he shot 12 shots in game 1 and had 26 points. And I mean, he's hardly attempted any. I don't think he's attempted that many shots the rest of the series, really. I mean, I think he has 17 shot attempts since game 1. And I mean, it hasn't gone well for him. But you know, like I said, they playing Daniel Tice would help. It would help if they had more wing depth. I mean, look at this. Jason Tatum played 44 minutes. Jaylen Brown played 44 minutes. Marcus Smart played 39 minutes. That's a lot for guys that you're looking to say, hey, we need y'all to not only score, but we need y'all to defend. It's not easy guarding Golden State. And you got Marcus Smart out here playing almost 40 minutes. You got Jaylen Brown, who's been a workhorse. He's playing 44 minutes. It finally caught up to him tonight. And I mean, Tatum, you know, he's been kind of up and down, but even in this game, you go 1 of 5 in the fourth. So he kind of ran out of gas too. He played all but a little less than 4 minutes tonight. So,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah. And you have, and again, you have these guys in, you know, a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, who, and I mean, really the whole roster, just like you said, these guys are all, you know, green to the finals, no pun intended, but they're all new here. And if we're really being honest, I feel like we do owe Boston some credit, because a big part of their fatigue is having to work through Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, you know, Drew Holiday, a 7-game series with, you know, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. You know, they've put the work in, and now they're having to go up against, again, one of the most legendary teams in NBA history, and they're going into this really, I mean, you could just say as freshmen. These are brand new. These are guys that are brand new to the event, brand new to the party, and they've been through quite a bit just to get here. So, I mean, I'm going to keep falling back on it. They're going to be here for a while. I really believe that they're going to be here for a while. Talented guys, but in the off season, just like you mentioned earlier, they're going to have to do a better job. Brad Stevens and company, they're going to have to make sure that they start putting some more valuable pieces around their stars.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, just think about where they were earlier in the year. We're sitting here talking about, oh, well, who do you keep? Who's their best player? Is it really Jaylen Brown? Is it Jason Tatum, like everybody wants you to think? Like, we were thinking, okay, well, who should they keep over those guys? They kept them both. They kept Marcus Smart, but right now is like you're kind of hoping to catch lightning in a bottle with guys like Derek White and Grant Williams. Like, those guys can play, don't get me wrong, but they're just not guys that have been counted on to like do it at a high level for a championship caliber team. And that's just it with that. I mean, their lack of depth has hurt them badly here, especially when guys on the top half of the roster haven't played well or haven't delivered at the same clip. So, at the end of the day, Golden State's up 3-2. Boston had again another game. It's 2 games in a row. They had a prime chance to, steal a game and make this interesting, take a 3-1 lead, go up 3-2 here, and they blew it because they just don't have the experience or the depth. And now Golden State has a chance going back up to Boston to close this out on Thursday. And, just thinking about how tonight went, again, Steph Curry goes 0 for 9. Golden State shoots 9 of 40 from 3, and they still won by 10. They were super clean with their ball control. They had 23 assists, 6 turnovers. Like, you can't have 18 turnovers. You can't miss 10 free throws on the road.
Right.
Like, those things can't happen if you're trying to actually win a championship. And now you'll run the risk of getting closed out on your home floor. And I don't think Steph Curry is going to go 0 for 9 from 3 again. I mean, typically in those games that he struggled, I mean, we saw a couple years ago, I think it was, he went 0 for 10 or something like that from 3. And then the next game he goes for like 46 and hits 13 threes. Yeah. So like, recent history is saying like, this doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, I read right after the game, they said this 0 for 9 tonight was the 3rd worst shooting game of his, I believe it said of his career. And it's worth mentioning, and again, we talked about it before, this is the first playoff game of Steph's career where he did not account for at least one made 3-pointer. And
it's a lot of games. That's a lot.
Right. I think games. what was, I think the playoff total was around like 130 something, I believe. It was somewhere
something like that. Yeah.
And then not only that, said that this is the first time that's happened to him since 2018. It has been almost 4 full years since this man played a game and did not hit a 3. I'm sorry, Boston. Y'all already know where I'm going with this, but I'm gonna wait until we get to our actual prediction segment. But I'm sorry, Boston. So a few other things that I saw that I wanted to point out, like even with the way the game looked today, there were still records being set. So so Klay Thompson actually took over the number 2 spot tonight of all-time 3-pointers made in the finals. So you're going up against a team right now where the all-time leader and the now second place holder of all-time threes made in the finals are both staring at you from across the court. Like,
unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Like that's rough. When you just step back and look at that, that's rough, man.
Yes. And not only that, Steph actually set another record tonight as well. Steph finished the game with 8 assists. That actually moved him into the top 10 all time in finals total assists. So I mean,
just a shooter, folks.
That's
just
it.
A shooter.
That's it. That's all he does. That's it. So Boston, you got your work cut out for you. And you touched on it earlier. I can't remember if you mentioned it, but another thing to point out, we talked about how turnovers are going, I'm not even going to say eventually. Turnovers have proven to be the downfall for Boston. Do you happen to know offhand how many turnovers Golden State had in the fourth quarter?
How many did they have in the fourth quarter?
they had the same number of turnovers in the fourth quarter as the number of threes that Steph made in this game. Golden State never turned the ball over in the fourth quarter, and we see night and day between the third and fourth quarter for both teams. You hold on to that ball and good things happen, and Golden State showed us a prime example of that tonight.
Absolutely. And that's experience. That's guys that have been there. Point blank period. And unless Curry somehow has another off game, or maybe Wiggins doesn't play out of his mind, and Boston actually finds a groove and can hold an advantage, it's probably ending Thursday, and it's probably going to be congratulations Boston for making this far, but thanks for playing. And there's no shame in that. Everybody takes their lumps, and this is no different. It's young guys that haven't been there before. They're just cutting their teeth in this. So they'll be back. Golden State is continuing to try and retool their roster because they're hungry for more success. And they look poised to finish this off. So now that we've gotten through game 5, we got to look forward to game 6 now. And we talked about this before we went on. Is Steph Curry really a lock for the finals MVP? If he goes out there again and he throws up another clunker, and Andrew Wiggins goes for 26 and 12.
Listen,
is the Canadian about to sneak in and steal this from Curry? I mean, is it Iguodala 2.0 or what?
Listen, so it's funny you bring that up. I was actually going to run that by you. So I was scrolling Facebook earlier, and one of the pages I follow is a page called Basketball Forever. They actually put out a list of what they believe are the 6 quote unquote most valuable players to their respective teams in these finals. So I'm gonna start at 6 and I'm gonna head to the top. We already know what's at the top. So actually, you know what? No, I'll start at the top because we already know what's there. So obviously right now they still have Steph at number 1. Right behind him at 2 is, of course, Maple Jordan. At 3, they actually have Jaylen Brown.
Okay, now, that makes sense.
Now at 4, of course, right behind him, they have Jason Tatum. At 5, they listed Marcus Smart. And at 6, they listed Robert Williams. Now, the first thing, now hear me out on this. The first thing about this list that I find hilarious is you're putting all this stake, all this value, and all these guys on one team that is getting they're basically mops right now. There's all this value on this roster, according to Basketball Forever. Please don't sue me. I don't have any money. There's you're putting so much stake and so much value into these 4 guys on one side. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all. It's almost like you just forced yourself to come up with a list of 6 guys. You could have stopped after 4. You could have stopped it.
They could have did that. I mean, kudos to them for their consideration and their empathy. That's really cool of y'all, but let's be real. it can only be like 4 guys, man. And Robert Williams, dude.
Come on. They're good.
Jordan Poole, y'all could have just went ahead and put Jordan Poole on that list if you wanted to, instead
I would rather him be on there. I mean, I feel like we're seeing more from him than and again, no knock on Robert Williams, but I feel like I'm gonna say I feel like Robert Williams is on here almost as on some Willis Reed type vote. Just because he's in the finals after bouncing back from his injury and everything, we're gonna give him the Willis Reed vote. So that's why he squeaked in at number 6. I'm like, I saw this list and I had to make sure I included it in the episode tonight because I was laughing my head off.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it can only it's realistically it's only four guys, and unless Boston gets this to 7 and wins it, we're not going to see it on their side. So, but I'm sitting here looking at it, man. Steph Curry has to be the most generous teammate. This man has
Easily.
never gotten Finals MVP.
Easily.
Ever.
Yeah.
And it's like this is his best chance to win this award. Like it's one thing to win back-to-back MVPs, being the first unanimous MVP ever, like
right.
The record for most threes in a season. He probably has all those records, like number 1, number 2, number 3, all that. Like when you look at everything Steph has accomplished, this is his time right here to get that Finals MVP, add to the legacy, because everybody already is trying to put him in somewhere in the GOAT conversation.
Right.
And all those dudes got Finals MVPs. So if he gets that, and then you're talking what, 4 titles? You know, so there's a lot at stake for his legacy here. But Andrew Wiggins is there, and Andrew Wiggins has showed out, and he has played extremely well, and he has been the piece, and people are noticing this. I mean, Steve Kerr basically said this is the guy that has revived their dynasty. Like this ain't some random spot up shooter guy that they acquired in the offseason. This is a dude, the former number 1 overall pick, can get you 20 to 30 any given night, and he's finally buying in as a complete player. Like he's rebounding, he's playing defense, he's using that wingspan.
Yeah,
you see the damage he does in transition. Like if Wiggins plays like he played tonight and the game where he had 17 and 16, and then Steph goes out here and throws up a clunker, don't be surprised if Steph coughed up this Finals MVP. And wait a minute, would Andrew Wiggins be the first Canadian Finals MVP?
I would have to go back and check, but off the top of my head, I want to say yes.
Yeah, because I don't think it was Rick Fox ever. So,
look, I was gonna try to come up with something witty about that, but I'm sorry, I can't.
I mean, I don't care how handsome he is. He couldn't handsome his way into the Finals MVP. Like, it wasn't. Oh
man,
no. So.
Oh man,
I think it's right there for Wiggins to possibly steal it if Steph is feeling generous enough to, because let's just cut it right here. Like it's Steph Curry.
Yeah,
like he knows whether the ball is going in or not. He knows. He was out. He his programming was off or something tonight. He knows when it's in or not, and he's out here shooting 7 for 22. So maybe he's trying to help his boy get another max deal. Maybe
it was basically one of those where, like, you remember back when we were kids, you're playing like the PlayStation or the Sega or whatever, and you mess around and like you don't know it right away, but your controller has like a short in the cord. So like you're sitting here,
we've all seen the green and yellow wires sticking out. We've seen
right. You're sitting here balling out, and then next thing you know, like your dude just stands still on the court, and you're knocking all the buttons. You can't figure out what's going on, and it's like, yeah, that was Steph tonight.
Yeah. He basically went on some like my career overall 68 game tonight.
Ooh.
At least the shooting sliders. I mean, the assists were there, and he worked his way to 16 points. So
yeah,
I think he's due for a bounce back in Game 6.
Oh, definitely.
It'll be interesting to see if Clay can build on what he did tonight, and obviously with him having his reputation in Game 6s, he could go off. Wiggins has played great, so it's not looking good for Boston. I won't completely count them out. They will be at home. They're a great defensive team. Defensive teams tend to do pretty well at home. Home rims, so they'll probably find a little bit of their shooting eye. Maybe we'll see some Daniel Tice. Maybe we'll see another guy off that bench maybe come in and change the game. Maybe Derek White will actually come in and play well. Grant Williams might hit a bunch of shots. Like maybe we'll have a reemergence from Al Horford. Notice I'm saying a lot of maybes here. There's a lot of contingency plans here that have to go right. It's basically Boston's in a position. If y'all ever seen Vegas Vacation, y'all know the scene where Chevy Chase is he's following the tour, and he eventually gets distracted because there's water dripping out the wall, and he starts trying to plug all these holes with his chewing gum. And so he plugs one hole, and then another one has water pop out. Then he plugs that one, then another one happens. Then there's another one. The scene ends with a giant bubble filled with water, and then he takes the last little bit of bubble gum and sticks it to the end, right?
Yeah.
Like that's basically Boston right now. That's Ime Udoka with this roster and this rotation right now. Like,
yeah,
if Tatum's going well, Brown struggles. Brown goes well, Tatum struggles. They both are average. Marcus Smart goes off. They both are okay. Then Marcus Smart disappears. Then Al Horford goes for 26, and you're like, oh man, and then he, falls off a cliff. So it's everything is shaping up for Golden State to win this. Boston has a puncher's chance being at home to extend the series. I just do not think that they will.
Yeah. And I think a big part of the problem, and again, we've been saying this, between the two of us since the finals started. A big part of the problem is that so many fans tend to live in the moment. And it's the whole rose-colored glasses. Like, Boston comes out in game one, and Boston looked incredible in game one. They played a heck of a game. Al Horford, we continue to talk about, the game that he played, and that one performance immediately has everyone like, oh, Boston is here. Oh, it's this and this and that. But immediately from game one, I'm like, okay, I 100% agree. They played a heck of a game. They played a game that they deserved to win. They fought for that W. But let's look at Al Horford. And I'm with you. I mean, hey, we're in Georgia. Atlanta Hawks Al Horford will probably always be one of my favorite NBA players. I mean, I loved watching him at Florida with Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer. That was a team to feast on. Like, it was always entertainment. But we have to be real. 36 years old, he's not the same player. We got incredible effort from him. We're still getting incredible effort from him, but the rest of this series is unfortunately reminding the fans that he's 36 years old. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's still a solid contributor, but he is not the Al Horford of old. He can shine every now and then, but it's not a guarantee that that's always going to happen. Now, like this, you said it's all about the maybe. I'm gonna take the maybe out of it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say kudos to Steph Curry, because he's not gonna be out of line enough to pull a Kyrie and stomp on Lucky the Leprechaun once Golden State closes this out on Thursday night. I don't think that Boston has it. I mean, I understand they're going back home. I get all of that, but I also don't think that a team like Golden State is going to smell this kind of blood in the water and not pounce. I think that, just like you said, hey, we were both right with game 5. That's worth mentioning. I think you said it before. We both said that Clay was going to be that guy, and we got one of the better showings from him in game 5. Another thing that's funny while we're on it, though, is and we talked about it again a little bit earlier, is our predictions as far as the final score. You had a 5-point win margin. I had a 15, and the final was actually by 10. So I'm like, once you guys get to know us a little better, you're going to find out that this happens with us all the time. Like, one of us might take the high, one of us might take the low, but something always happens to where it ends up in the middle. It's like we're always thinking on the same wavelength. It's crazy. Like I say, this is my boy. This is why he's my best friend. I mean, we joke pretty often that we're the same person, and you guys, like I said, it'll come out a lot in future episodes, I promise. But when it comes to game 6, Shane, I think it's a wrap. I think it's done. I think that I think that they need to go ahead and pull whatever strings, work whatever magic, tell whatever lies they're going to tell to make sure that Silver gets out of protocol by Thursday, because because he's going to need to be there to hand out those trophies. I think it's over in Boston Thursday night. So
with that being said, give me, you pick Golden State, give me a score.
Okay. So watching tonight, I feel it probably won't be too much different. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to go blood in the water again. I'm going to say that the final on Thursday is going to be, I'm going to stick pretty close to what I said for tonight. I'm going to say Golden State wins it I'm going to say 109 to 98. I'm going to say it'll be an 11-point game. And the reason I want to go 11 is because if you notice, there has not been a single-digit game in this series yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Plus, I need you to get out of my head, because my first thought when I was thinking my prediction was 109 at least.
Look, see, here we go. Look, everybody listening, what did I tell you about this whole same person thing? Look, no, I definitely think it's going to be a double-digit game. I think Golden State is going to pull it out. I'm going to say 109-98. And I also think that Steph is going to solidify his first finals MVP trophy. I don't think that Steph has 2 games back to back like he did tonight. I think that Steph is going to come out and Steph is going to go to work. So I will also say that Steph is going to win finals MVP.
Okay. I'm with that. I'm going with Golden State as well in game 6 up in Boston. My score prediction, I don't know if I need to still go with 109, because that's what I was going to think. I'm going to go Golden State. Man, I'm going to go Golden State 111. Boston 94.
Now here's the funny thing real quick is, since I said 112 for tonight, I was actually debating on going with 111 before I went to 109.
Because it's so easy to, I don't know, like Golden State tends to put up around that number. Like in most closeout games, it tends to be around that number. So
and the
111-94, my prediction. You go 109-98 with Steph winning MVP. I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Steph for MVP. I'm not going to hedge my bet and say, oh, but Andrew Wiggins is right there on his heels. I think Steph gets it. Yeah. And solidifies his legacy, gets the finals MVP.
Yeah.
And Golden State wins their 4th title in what, 6 tries?
This is 6 for this core.
Yeah. So I think that's what happens. And
because they only lost the one to Cleveland, and then the injury series with Toronto.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I feel weird calling it an injury series, because I'm a huge proponent of injuries or not, you play who's in front of you. So I don't want to sound like I'm discrediting Toronto in any way, because that is not what I'm doing. I mean, they earned their trophy. That's not what I'm trying to say. So I have something else that I want to hit you with, Shane, and I feel like it needs to be done now rather than when the series is over, only because there is still that element of the maybe. And we've talked about this, on and off, but I want to go ahead and bring it up on the podcast just so we can kind of get to it a little bit more. So hypothetically, we've both said that that it's pretty much Steph's award, to lose at this point, meaning the finals MVP. Now, we've also had another very interesting conversation about if some kind of crazy way Boston was able to come back and win this series. How would you feel about Boston winning the series, and for the first time since 1969, shout out Jerry West, go Lakers. How would you feel about Boston winning the series and the finals MVP trophy still going to Steph Curry?
Completely okay with it. You know why? Because Jason Tatum hasn't deserved it. Jaylen Brown has been good, but he ain't been that good. And Marcus Smart is Marcus Smart. So, no knock on Marcus Smart, but he's Marcus Smart.
Mm.
And yeah, this is the one time where I think it other than LeBron in 16 15, other than LeBron in 15, this is another situation where if they decide to go, if Golden State does blow this, because this is the most 3-1ist, 3-2ist series that we've seen. Like, it's 3-2, but it feels like 3-1. And there's no way that Steph doesn't. I think he's been the best player in the series. If Boston wins, I could. This is one time I could get behind that, and I mean I could have got behind it in 15 if LeBron had got it, instead of Iguodala. Like, it's just Steph has been that good, and he's been that impactful in this series. And Boston, even if they do win, I feel like Steph's still been the best. This would be one time I'd be cool with it.
To be honest, and I mean, I actually love the fact that we disagree here, because I wouldn't be okay with that happening. I don't know. I feel like it's, and maybe my mind is a little jaded in this, but I just struggle with finding value or saying that there's a higher amount of value in a certain player whose team ended up taking the L. I just kind of have trouble seeing it that way. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I feel like Steph has already had a heck of a series, minus tonight. But I don't know. I kind of struggle with that. And it's I feel like it's different looking at the finals between the finals and the regular season, which, if you really look at the name of the awards, I guess you would have an argument not to look at it that way. But I just, and maybe it's just the traditionalist in me talking, but I just have trouble finding, like, at least in the regular season, it's like, we'll look at the most valuable player award, and we kind of look at it from the standpoint of, maybe this team overachieved or this or that, or, and even if we look at it from a standpoint of overachievement, I don't see how that carries over to a series like the finals, where you have a team like Golden State, and and we try to use that argument of, oh, did this team overachieve? No, they didn't. They are who we thought they were. But it's, I feel like, and I think we've even had this conversation before. I feel like what should be done, just to avoid that type of confusion, is that they should find some sort of name to give to the finals quote unquote MVP other than most valuable player, because I think that also kind of skews a little bit of the debate. But from my
yeah, I mean they've already, I think at this point, it's pretty much, what college has the most outstanding player or whatever.
Right.
It's important to, I think the thing there is, and I see your argument. The argument there is most valuable doesn't necessarily mean best.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
And I mean, and here's the thing too. And I'm gonna just pose this real quick because we need to wrap this up soon. But like, if Boston does win, then who's the finals MVP? I mean, Marcus Smart's probably been the most consistent guy. I mean, Jaylen Brown's probably been their best player so far. Tatum's been stock market. So it's like,
no, and
who do you give the finals MVP to on that end if they manage to pull this off and win?
Yeah, and I mean, and I feel like that's a debate that we could have, at a later date if it did come to that. But it just like you said, it's if I guess the way I would kind of counter that is with a question like this is like, how do we gauge value of what a person gave to a team that lost anyway? With the hypothetical of like, okay, if that individual wasn't here, then what would have happened? That team would have lost by more. They still lost. So from that standpoint, that's why I feel like that award should go to somebody that contributed to their team actually taking home the trophy.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
Boston messes around, wins game 6, wins game 7. Who's the finals MVP on Boston?
I feel like if they manage to come back, first off, I think game 6 and 7 are going to have to play a huge part in that. But to me right now, it would probably be a toss up between, like you said, I think it would be either Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart. And the reason I say that is because while Jason Tatum has been there and has, played his role, I feel like there's been too many moments where he's fallen off and almost shied away. Now, even though Jaylen Brown's consistency has been there and it might have been a little less than usual, to me, consistency does play a big part. So I would say the same thing for Marcus Smart, because even though the same thing is not expected of Marcus as it is of Jaylen and Jason, I think that Marcus has done a solid job of playing his part of doing what he's on that team to do.
Yeah, he's been a workhorse, man. He's basically kind of, maybe to a lesser extent, he's basically Boston's Jimmy Butler, I think. Like he kind of takes on a lot. He's kind of the warrior on that team. He probably plays some of the most minutes on the team. Right. And he's the defensive player of the year. So I mean, he would probably be, because he won defensive player of the year, I think he would be a dark horse for that. And he would have a really good case if that's to happen. But don't think it will.
No, I don't think it will. No, like I said, I mean, I'm sticking to what I said. Like I said, from the end of the conference finals, Warriors in 6. I'm sticking to my prediction. If that does not happen and we get a game 7, I give all of you listeners my word. I will get on here, and as soon as we introduce the next episode, the first thing I will do is say that I was wrong. I have no problem with that. I will admit that I was wrong, but I don't think that's gonna happen. In the to pull off my dude Charles Barkley's book, I might be wrong, but I doubt it.
There it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming up to the end here. This is our Game 5 recap, episode 4 of the JWJ podcast. As always, you can catch us on Anchor and you can catch us on Spotify at the JWJ podcast. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at the JWJ podcast. You can follow us individually. You can follow James at Title Towns Mayor. That's TitleTownzMayor. You can follow me, Shane, at It's a Thomas Thing. On Twitter, that is capital ITS, lowercase a, capital T, HOMAS, capital T, HING, and it's all lowercase on IG. So that'll conclude our episode of the JWJ podcast. Thank you for all your support. If you made it here, thank you so much. And we will catch you guys in the next one. So thank you. James, say goodnight.
Yes, big thank you to everybody that is listening. We seriously mean that from the bottom of our hearts. again, you guys know this is, a startup project for us, but it has been a passion, a project that has been a decade in the making. So if you're still here, if you're still listening, we truly, truly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us this far. And God willing, we'll be here for a long time. Thank you guys again for listening. You guys enjoy the rest of your night, your day, whatever time of day you're listening to this. But thank you so much for listening to us.
And thank you for listening to JWJ.